Well, we can now bring in Yann Saint Pierre, who's a terrorism expert at the Modern Security Consulting Group. Thanks for speaking to France 24.
For having me.
How unusual would you say this kind of event is for Australia?
An attack on whether it's a synagogue or an event of the Jewish community is unfortunately not exceptional over the last 2 years. There's certainly been a build-up, in particular since the terrorist attack of October 7, 2023. In Israel, since then, we've monitored different types of attacks of growing anti-Semitism, different actions that were leaning towards increased violence. And in this sense, although the scale remains the largest in 30 years, it does fit a pattern that we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years.
Now, the government is proposing certain law changes restricting access to guns. Will these prevent this kind of attack from happening in the future?
It could play a role, but it begins first and foremost by trying to de-escalate, by finding ways to limit the polarization and the use or the idea that violence could be the best way to express political grievances. What we've seen in Australia is not limited to Australia. It's something we see in Europe. We see it in North America as well. That there's a proclivity, a tendency to use firearms, to use violence for political purposes in an increasing fashion, and therefore limiting or increasing or restricting the gun laws in a different way. It could help, but it's really treating more the symptom than the cause. And in this sense, I think those laws will only be sort of superficial and not really go at the heart of the problem.
So you're saying this is a risk that looks like it's increasing along with the political climate around the world. But are there any places that are more effectively dealing with this kind of security risk?
Well, there are some countries where the prevention, especially the monitoring. Now we know with the issue with Bondi Beach, for example, that one of the attackers had already been or has been monitored over the last 6 years. The question is then, what were the preventive measures that were in place to try to mitigate that? In other countries, they're more proactive because their history with terrorism has been so violent in recent years. They've had to learn from those lessons. There are certainly European countries right now that are more proactive. We know Middle East countries are more proactive as well. So there are examples around the world where being more proactive, preemptive in dealing with terrorism has certainly been more effective, and maybe Australia can learn from that as well.
Yeah, you're referring to the fact that Australia's spy agency investigated the son, who's the suspect of the father, one of the two shooters, for links to the Islamic State group. Now, in the aftermath of the attack, police immediately invoked terrorism laws in order to access special powers to carry out their investigation. Would you say that this is an effective mechanism?
Well, it's an effective measure to help with the investigation. Unfortunately, in such cases, and we're seeing again more and more cases around the world, we've seen in the last 15 years especially, that being able to work preemptively is even more important. Therefore, the monitoring of data behavior is becoming even more important. We've seen that in the U.S. Today with another announcement that they foiled the terrorist plot in Germany 3 days ago. The same thing, they foiled the terrorist plot because they were able to act in advance, reacting on information, reacting on intelligence, and therefore, yes, using special powers is important, but it's only if it helps slightly with an investigation, but it's the powers that occur before that are a lot more useful.
Yann Saint Pierre, thank you very much for speaking to France 24.